Good to be back, good to be back. This time in black and white, except I got a bit of red around, so hung that up there. Good old, I should be putting that around my neck after watching this 2.5 hour long movie. So basically, if you couldn't tell from the title, Tenet is Nolan's Bond shaken with a slice of Twin Peaks, and yes, it's a masterpiece. I loved this movie. I've watched it twice now. I genuinely think this might just be his best movie. Christopher Nolan's best movie. You know, the first time I saw this, I sort of had the reaction, like, I think I really love this movie, but I don't quite appreciate it yet. And admittedly, I don't fully appreciate the movie as much as I think I will in the future. It's one of these weird movies in my mind. I keep going back to it. It almost reminds me of you know, when we first saw something like The Matrix from the Wachowskis, and you know, just movies like that, science fiction movies like that. But generally, what I got the sense about from this movie is that it's Nolan's Inception mixed in with Bond, with maybe a sprinkling, good dash of Twin Peaks and the Lynchian sort of mystery that goes along with it, that David Lynch incorporates. You know, a bit of symbolism, I guess. I don't know. I've seen a lot of great takes on Tenet. I think this one channel I stumbled across. I know one of the spoilers channels describes some of the events that happen, because they're rather confusing. Even watching it again the second time, it's rather confusing trying to track, especially during the climax, kind of what's going on. Though I think there's a line from this woman earlier in the film. She's talking to John David Washington's character, and she says something along the lines of like, don't think of it, just feel it. You know, basically go along with it. And absolutely, yeah, that's the case. You gotta stop overthinking. Basically, is what this film's trying to say to you. And I think when I say this is Nolan's Bond mixed in with Twin Peaks, I literally mean this is, because the main character doesn't get a name in this. If anything, he kind of gets this code name. He's dead to the world. He's constantly called the protagonist. I've seen, I think Cortex, the channel I stumbled across, the channel's done numerous videos surrounding Tenet. You know, and I'd highly, you could literally type in Tenet explained on YouTube and you'd get 1,000 other videos that can better explain the movie than I ever possibly could, you know? And I've watched my fair share of those, so that's why after the fact I wanted to sort of give my own fresh take. I thought about writing some of the stuff down that I wanted to talk about, but I figured a free-flowing sort of video like this would fit in better, at least with the style I like to go for, you know? Because if you want a detailed analysis of all the intricacies surrounding this film, you could always go to other channels that literally show you the scene and literally explain it to you, to even dummies like me, so that we can understand. Because this film is very, very confusing at certain points. Overall, it's very easy to follow as long as you go with what the lady tells the John David Washington character near the start. It's like, just go with it, basically, is what they're trying to tell you pretty much from the get-go. Because Nolan just throws you into this, and I love the opening opera scene. I guess a lot of people were complaining about the sound. This time I watched it with the subtitles on, because the first time I watched it, I couldn't register some of the dialogue, you know? I couldn't grasp what certain characters were saying, especially during this, like, I want to say a boat sequence, but I'm not really sure. It's like sailing of some kind, like they have to go to each side. I've seen it before, but it's the way it's filmed in this probably due to the IMAX cameras as well. It's very epic, and it's very fantastic. It's not even a chase sequence, and yet it's such a thrilling moment. And I guess that moment is this scene. Everybody was complaining about the fact that we can't hear the dialogue, or like the music's too loud. And first time around, it kind of annoyed me. Second time around, watching it with subtitles, it was just fine. I feel a lot of movies, they should have the subtitles. That's not the fault on Nolan. I think that's kind of a fault with modern audiences. I don't think a lot of people really like having the words come across at the bottom of the screen. I think a lot of them think it's distracting, yet these are the same people that would probably be asking their friends in the movie theater, hey, what just happened? You know, what did I miss? I had to go to the washroom for 5 hours. What did I miss from this movie? And it's just like, you just got to see it. You got to go with it. You got to go with the flow. And watching it again second time around, I feel like I could go with the flow of this movie way more. I sort of looked at it almost as if... I agree with this video that I came across where I think it was Cortex Video's channel, whatever he calls his channel. I know his first name in there is Cortex. Done a great job explaining some of the intricacies of Tenet. I agree with them. I agree with the Max is Neil, Neil is Max sort of theory. I think that's pretty obvious once you take in the film, especially on a second viewing. You sort of go, yeah, that can only make sense, and that's exactly what he's going for. And what I mean, and I alluded to this before, so sorry I ramble a lot, but I think it's necessary for a movie like this to basically sort of just get it all out there, throw it all out there, discuss it with yourself and others, and try to unpack this thing. Try to unpack it, So I genuinely think that this is literally James Bond. They can't use the name James Bond, but I think this is James Bond literally in a Christopher Nolan Inception-esque almost Twin Peaks sort of deal. It's a very unique film that I absolutely... The best sort of compliment I can give this movie is that I genuinely feel that Nolan is the genius I've been hearing about for years. I always thought this guy was a genius, but wow, like this movie, it leaves me shaken at how how just genius he the fact that so much clearly, I mean, even people that hate this movie, they got to give the guy credit. A lot of time and effort went into making this film relevant, like matter. I don't know, just something that deserves to be seen. That's what I appreciate about this film so much. Because I've seen a lot of films that don't deserve to be seen, and yet I love them. Because a lot of these films are so bad they're good in a certain aspect or another. But this film, there's something so special about what Nolan brings to the table with this. It's literally his version of James Bond is embodied by John David Washington. And it's what audiences have asked for from Bond for a while. I don't think anybody has a problem with the idea that, hey, we're gonna cast the next Bond as a black man. And you sort of hear that and you go, yeah, and we're gonna cast Idris Elba. And your mind sort of goes, yeah. And what's the next best deal? Well, how about we get John David Washington, who's a phenomenal actor in his own right, Like, you could basically cast any fantastic black actor these days as James Bond. However, I think a lot of Western... Like, what I love about this film is that literally that's the way I'm perceiving it now. I'm perceiving this as Nolan basically... Not only is the main character, us, the audience, literally experiencing everything through his eyes and sort of taking action as we hopefully would in this sort of scenario, because he's sort of thrown into this just like we are. We have really no clue. We have some semblance of what's going on, but not almost not to the point in which we're prepared for. You know, it's very tough to talk about this film because it's like back and forth, back and forth. Of course, I hope you've seen this film, darn it, and you're not just sitting here watching me lose my mind in black and white. I think that would be a marvelous waste of time. Instead, you should be watching this movie. You know, even if you've seen it already and you didn't like it, I genuinely think there's something to gather from this film on a second viewing, because it's one of those amazing experiences that it just changes. You know, quite frankly, I can't wait to watch this film again. Like right after seeing it just recently, I thought I'd have enough with it. Get hair in my mouth now. Cat's over there and I'm getting her hair, clearly, because I have none. Well, they grow slightly, you know, in the Homer Simpson style. Yeah, so Tenet, I genuinely just absolutely adored this film the second time around. As I was saying, even if you hated it the first time around, I think even people that did hate it gave it the lowest score possible. I think even those people, they gotta at least give Nolan credit. I mean, they gotta say, like, we hated the film so much and that's because of you, you know? It's like, some negatives are positive, you know? Some positives are negative. You know, everything has a reaction, and this film genuinely teaches, or feels like it's trying to teach you something about the mechanics of not only film, but you know, what we can do in order to take action. Because, like, I cannot stress this enough, that this character, protagonist, as he's listed, is literally how Nolan, in my opinion, sees James Bond. You know, he could be anybody. It doesn't matter who you cast as James Bond. You know, they can be an American black man, and it doesn't matter. You know, anybody can be Bond, and he sort of wants to take us on this trip through this character and showing how this guy, like, even though he does resemble what I presume Nolan appreciates most about Bond, you know, as this sort of heroic guy who does, like, heinous actions, yes, but he does it in order to help people, hopefully, in the long run. I know there are probably examples, like, aplenty of James Bond doing these, like, sort of terrible things that actually, like, cause more harm than good. But at the end of the day, usually he is trying to stop literal World War III, you know, which they allude to in this film. It's literally the, like, end of the world sort of plot contrivance. It's like, this world's gonna end. We have to stop whatever the bad guy of the week is. You know, whatever his name is. Sator, I think his name is in this. Because it has something to do, like, I remember seeing some sort of pattern where his name, Sator, is in line with Tenet. Tenet's in the middle of this pattern, and, like, Sator is like somewhere along. Like, it's basically like you can read the same words, like, going up and down, side to side. You know, they read, like, either something different backwards, or they're placed in sequence where you can, like, read it up. It's so confusing for me to explain. I wish I wasn't so lazy and I could throw some editing to show you the darn picture, but I'm pretty sure most people could literally type in Sator or Tenet and be like, oh, okay, there's this picture of, like, 5, I think it is, words. It might even be Sator in reverse on another one. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like reversing the word. Like, Tenet's in the middle, and, like, maybe Sator's, like, 2 and 3, but the bottom one's, like, reversed in some way. I'm trying to explain it to myself, I feel like, because I'm the dummy here. You guys probably know more about this stuff than I do. Jeez Louise. Losing it here. I'm losing it. But all I know for sure is that I genuinely love this film. I think it's a classic. I think it's not my personal favorite movie of the year, but of all the movies I've seen so far this year, of all the stuff I've just experienced this year, this is by far stuck with me the most. I highly recommend this to anybody. I genuinely think this is better than any Bond movie ever, quite frankly. I feel that strongly about it. It's not quite as good as Twin Peaks in my opinion, but it's pretty darn close, and it's pretty ingrained in my mind after seeing it the second time around now. I think this is a film that's going to last. It's going to stand the test of time. A lot of people are really going to have a lot of fun talking about it with friends, and you know, Nolan fans in general are probably getting a kick out of this movie now that it's available to watch. I mean, it's just such an impressive masterpiece. Genuinely, this film is a masterpiece. I think even people that hate it would probably wouldn't be upset if something like this won an Oscar for Best Picture. My prediction, in fact, is that this probably will get Best Picture of the Year. That's my prediction. I could be very wrong, and it probably doesn't even get nominated. However, I think the Academy, like seeing how they've sort of rewarded other directors in the past, like Scorsese and whatnot, they usually reward them on films that aren't necessarily their best, but films that audiences, I think, genuinely mostly like. You know, this film got kind of mixed reviews. Like, it gets more 7s or 8s than like 9s and 10s, like a lot of his other movies, such as The Prestige and Memento, especially Dark Knight, which sits at a legendary 9 out of 10 on IMDb. Even after like over a decade, that film still impresses. I mean, I think even people that think it's overrated probably look at it and go, there's something great going on here. Maybe I just don't like it because it doesn't exactly fit my needs for whatever I'm expecting from this film, whether it be, oh, I'm upset because they don't play Batman in this way, or it's too long, you know, or it's too violent and aggressive and tense, and it doesn't leave you with that feeling that other films normally do, because you don't exactly know where it's going. The Dark Knight, the Joker character sort of throws you for a loop. It's not Batman Begins, and it's sure as hell not The Dark Knight Rises. It's something that like just almost makes you feel like you're going crazy along with the Joker in that film, just with the madness and the anarchy that he's causing throughout. So yeah, what I love so much about Tenet, and why I'm willing to call it quite possibly my favorite Nolan film, easily one of my favorite movies of 2020. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but however, I mean, if I'm in the future from now and you hear me saying it's my favorite movie, then forgive me, because, or at least, hey, you know, I kind of called it. If I change my mind in the future, who knows? Maybe I'm from the future and I'm talking about the past from the past now, because you won't see this video as I'm filming it, but yeah, this film just gets the wires in my brain feeling like they're working again. And I feel a lot of people genuinely need to experience something like this, even if they don't appreciate it for what it is. I think there's something special about this film. For instance, the fact that I don't think there's any CGI in this film at all. If any, like I think there might be some sequences of computer generated, like not images, full images like this, but I think maybe some manipulation like through CGI maybe have been done. I could be entirely wrong about that, because this film looks so authentic. That's what I love. There's no moment where you're sort of taken out. Like, I don't know about you guys, but there's always this moment in modern Bond films where you can tell it's like, that's really bad CGI. It's not often, but it's usually just like one shot where you're distracted by the CGI surrounding the scene and whatnot. It's a very crazy thing. It's a very crazy thing. And what I love about this film is that talking about it now, I could swear that I've talked about it on camera before. It's very strange, very strange. I think I did maybe talk about this on camera before. I could be wrong about that, but I don't know. It's just, this is just one of those films, you know? It's one of those fascinating movies that, God, I love it, and I wanted to talk about it because I hadn't heard about it in a while. And, yeah. I don't have any coffee in here. That's damn fine coffee. So what else do I got to talk about? I mean, I guess that's about it. I mean, this film is so meta. At least it feels very meta to me, like it's self-aware. At one point, John David Washington's protagonist character, or James Bond, is walking into a restaurant with another actor that we could envision as maybe potentially have played Bond in the past, maybe even an older version at this point. If they ever do an old Bond, you could totally see a guy like Michael Caine as the character. So it's funny that in this scene he's referred to as Sir Michael. I know his last name is different, but I think Michael Caine has been knighted, so it might be Sir Michael Caine. I could be mistaken. But the last I checked, I mean, like, let's check it out here just to make sure, see if I'm right. My Cocaine. Because he's such a wonderful actor, and he's like he's got such a cool scene. Okay, it is Sir Michael Caine. So they literally, there's I forget the context for how they introduce that his name, because he's not literally playing Sir Michael Caine, but this movie's so meta. It's like you almost catch on to the fact that, okay, this is Nolan, like, almost going, yeah, I know, I love Michael Caine just as much as you guys, you know, so why couldn't he play himself in one of my movies? You know, why couldn't we see him as this sort of guy who probably got up to very, like, spy type sort of similar things. You can almost sort of envision what his character, even though he's only on screen for like 2 minutes or 3 at most, during this like simple sit down and get some exposition scene from Michael Caine, Sir Michael Caine, you know, even though you don't get much time to spend with this character, you almost get the sense of that there's this history about him. Whether that be the literal history of the actor or the character is one way or the other. It's the sort of back and forth sort of like push and pull of this movie. It's got this sort of constant epic feel, constant grandiose feel, where you feel every piece of dialogue, if you look at it a certain way, you feel like there's something on the line with. And that's what makes this movie so interesting, in my opinion, is because even the exposition, even though it's so, like, it's too much, literally, it's too much. But at the same time, it's appreciated because Nolan's showing that he very much cares about treating you, us, the audience. He cares about treating us like we're smart enough to know exactly what's going on, because he understands that people do rewatch movies. Movies do get better with time. I can go from saying I hate so-and-so movie, and then I could watch it again in a matter of months where it's basically evaporated from my mind, rewatch it again, especially with a group of people getting different perspectives. I go, whoa, now I love this for some reason. Maybe it's because I'm sort of mirroring the people around me. Maybe it's another effect entirely. Maybe I watched it alone both times, but I was a better frame of mind the second time I watched it. And that's the good thing I like about this film too. It's almost Nolan's way of saying, yes, we do get better with time. You know, what's happened, you know, is basically what the characters keep repeating throughout this film. I'm getting I'm having a tough time repeating words that I've said before. What? Because it was distracting, like watching the subtitles in a certain way, because what's happened. You know, you sort of look at the way it's worded, like what with either the apostrophe, I think, or what apostrophe s space happened apostrophe s space happened. I mean, it's just the way it's worded. What's happened. It's almost like a tongue twister to my mind. I don't know if I'm the only one that finds that it's fascinating stuff. It's fascinating stuff what Nolan has done here, you know, because obviously he's very inspired by, and like that's why Nolan's so praised. I mean, even if you don't like his movies for whatever reason, I mean, I get that there's a lot of, I mean, a small minority, but still, you know, that's a majority in a certain sense. You could live in a whole city of people that just hate Christopher Nolan movies for whatever reason. And it's interesting to hear why. You know, they say, oh, these characters are cold and there's not enough humor. And in my opinion, I mean, maybe the volume, the sheer volume of this movie sort of distracted from the fact that there are humorous bits, especially from the John David Washington character. You know, especially from Robert Pattinson. I mean, both of these guys know how to do, like, they have comedic timing. It's weird. It's not like Leonardo DiCaprio, I guess, has got some comedic timing as well. Like, I was about to say not really, but judging from Wolf of Wall Street, I'd say, yeah, he does have a knack for comedic timing, but like, I don't know, he's almost got this like straight-laced sort of thing about him, you know, Leo DiCaprio, where it's like it's strange, like, because looking back on Inception, it's like I thought I'd like that film more, you know, more now than I did back then. But the strange thing about Inception is that it almost is the opposite of Tenet to me, where Tenet gets better and better the more I think about it. Inception sort of just like, it still stays with me, but in some ways I feel like, I don't know, I feel that maybe that film was the one that was a bit more overrated than this movie. I genuinely feel this movie is kind of underrated in certain aspects. I think a lot of critics, like, I'm shocked, genuinely. Like, after the first time I watched this film, I'm like, people are debating whether this is his worst movie? Like, really? I mean, because so much of this movie reminded me. So I guess in that sense I shouldn't be surprised, but so much of this movie reminded me of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, the Twin Peaks prequel movie. You know, that functioned as not only a prequel movie, but also as a sort of like sequel in a sense as well. Like, because you're sort of learning more information, even though you're backwards in time in that film from the chronological order of the show, you know, in which it came out, like season 1, season 2, and then all of a sudden we're back before the events of the show to sort of let us know something new, something that we maybe didn't exactly latch onto beforehand. I mean, it's confusing to interpret, to, you know, fully explore that, but I think it's there. I think this is Nolan embracing just the fact that, you know, I can do wondrous things, not just with my production, you know, because the production in this film is incredible. I mean, even like a simple action scene where John David Washington is just throwing plates at people and slamming them into a glass. Like, there's something so epic in how just confident Nolan is in this film. He's at his most confident filmmaking wise in this. Like he doesn't feel the need to go to outer space. He doesn't feel the need to have it be Batman flying around. Like, to a certain extent, he doesn't even feel the need to have it be James Bond. But like from my eye, this is something. This shows what he'd bring to the table if he was ever handed the keys to the franchise like Bond. You know, he probably would do something just that we wouldn't expect, something that subverts our expectations, but in the best way possible, to which, you know, he doesn't show us a lot of clips or a lot of trailer images. In fact, what I loved about the marketing for Tenet is that the whole, I guarantee Nolan kind of knew, because I don't think they released what the character names were. So I think, knowing how Nolan loves to keep his films hidden beforehand, like after they're released, he's like, all right, you know, now you guys can talk about it now that it's for sure been released. There's something like where, yeah, he's a very smart guy, to the point in which I just lost my train of thought. Darn it. It's probably on tape there. On tape. Just the moment where I lose my train of thought. You know? In hindsight, I thought I was talking about something genius, something that's going to change the world, but of course not, you know? It's like, potentially, who knows? Maybe somebody will hear this and they go, oh my God, that's the secret. That's the secret. That's the secret. Just babble on incoherently for God knows how long. And make a video in black and white, but get that Canada flag and get this candy cane there. I think I put that there to distract the cat. But of course cats are disappointments, so they don't stick around for too long, but all of a sudden, boom, they teleport there. I mean, she could be there as soon as I turn around at some point. I wouldn't notice it on the camera here, even if I'm looking at myself over in this area. Or I'm looking at you there, I'm looking at myself here. You, self, you, self. What am I going on about? Oh man, but honestly, I think it's time for the Oscars to really to get their foot out of their mouth and put their money where their mouth is. If they want people to take their award shows seriously, I think they not only owe it to Nolan, in my opinion, who probably should have won Best Director all the way back when The Prestige came out. Hell, even Memento. I think this guy's a talent, and I think he's proven himself time and time again. I quite honestly foresee it that he probably will get Best Director for this, for sure. I don't understand why. Like I don't see any point like who else would challenge him, because that's the thing that I love and hate about, you know, the push and pull about award shows, is that I hate them. You know, I think they're overblown. I think they're nonsensical. I think they often award the wrong movies. But I love award shows like the Oscars when they award the right movies. A movie, for instance, like last year that won, Parasite, or I think it was last year, if not the year before, but rather recently, this foreign movie called, foreign language film called Parasite won. And that film was a masterpiece. That film opened up a lot of North American audience eyes to the idea that, hey, film can be just as brilliant as like English language film without subtitles. You know, just because I have to read a bit of subtitles doesn't make the movie bad. You know, it makes it something fresh and new, because obviously a lot of people watching this right now, you know, they watch because they're used to watching stuff that's solely in English, because that just happens to be the majority of the media that we get sent out to us now. And again, that's another thing that I like about Nolan. It's something that other filmmakers obviously do. I mean, but he has a wider range of actors. You know, this is a globe-trotting movie. It's not just, you know, literally like white person after white person, you know, like it's not just like you're looking at, because even though I don't normally you know, watch a movie with that in mind. For instance, if I'm watching an old like war movie set in like I forget, like World War I or two, either one. If I'm watching and I don't see any black guys in those films, I don't really notice that. That doesn't really distract me, especially since soldiers usually, at least in good war movies that depict how dirty it can and bloody it can be, like usually they're covered up in soot and they're like in the dirt and mud to the point where, and I like it when filmmakers do that because it makes them sort of look human. That's why I think it's crazy the fact that people are saying this could be his worst movie. No, his worst movie is Dunkirk. Dunkirk, if you're telling me that's his best movie, I think that's the most utterly ridiculous and insane thing I've ever heard, because that film is literally only saved in its production. For instance, the editing. I like the editing. I like the like how Nolan deals with time in it. Like he deals with a short amount of time with the Tom Hardy flight sequences. That's why he's not really in the film much. And then like you know, he has like these three sort of time levels that he explores. Like there's one involving the boat and like this either father or grandfather to these two kids, and they pick up Cillian Murphy, who's like a who fell in the water after the boat exploded, and then you have all this stuff on the land with, I guess, like, who is that, Harry Styles? One of the, was it One Direction or something? I'm pretending like I don't know, but I genuinely don't know. Like I forget if it's like One Direction or Jonas Brothers that he's part of. I don't know. You see, pop culture, there's just too much of it now. There's always going to be this forever, this ignorant side to me, because I can't ever know anything, everything, I mean anything. I can't know anything at this point in time. Why would I be talking right now if I knew anything? Because I understand words, kind of, even though I probably couldn't fully define every single word without looking up the dictionary definition to which I've just said, you know, like, you can't always know everything 100%. You can only ever... wow, this film's making me like the classic armchair philosopher, just pretending like I have a degree. Yes, Tenet, yes, the greatest movie of all time. Tenet. It could be argued. I mean, it could be argued. That's how strongly I feel about this movie, especially compared to something like Dunkirk. I thought that movie was... and a friend of mine, we watch a lot of movies together. He messaged me a while ago on Facebook before he came over, like a few weeks back. It's been a while since I've seen the guy. But he was telling me, you know, I watched Dunkirk and I thought, you know, like that sucked. I turned it off after a bit. And I'm like, yeah, honestly, if I didn't know if it was a Nolan film or not, I probably would have done the same. I probably would have turned it off halfway through. It really was quite boring, but I was compelled just with the production around it. It's another classic Nolan example of, you know, hardly using CGI, if at all. Maybe he does certain CGI, like expansions of maybe a fireball explosion, whatever. Just to fill out more of the scene, I guess, to the point where it's not distracting to the viewer's eyes. But yeah, I think he's done a really fantastic thing with Tenet. I think this film deserves a lot more praise than, like, I don't think this film deserves any sort of negativity. I mean, if people are talking negative about this film, I hope they at least acknowledge the fact that a lot of care went into this film, and you could totally be wasting your time on a much worse film for 2.5 hours than this. For instance, you could watch something as terrible as American Honey, which is a very overrated film, though it has a similar sort of score as Tenet on something like Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's in the high 70s, just like Tenet is. If not Tenet, it's like lower than this. I think it's at like 71 or maybe even in the high 60s the last I looked at Tenet on Rotten Tomatoes. But that just goes to show you how insanely out of touch those critics are that they feature on Rotten Tomatoes. I think those I think critics, especially nowadays, I mean, even to a certain extent in the past, I mean, even if you like a certain critic's interpretation of movie, I think sometimes like like when they're singled out, they're useful, but when they group together, it's just like you get this group think sort of focus group sort of view of things, like, oh, audiences wouldn't like this because they're too dumb. People are too dumb for this movie, is what I foresee a lot of critics saying as a negative for Tenet. It's like audience, but they try to mask it by saying something nice like, oh, this I don't think would interest popcorn audiences, you know, and quite frankly, I didn't like it either. Usually these people are trying to project themselves onto every single audience member out there. You know, it's why I've sort of grown to, you know, I still love classic critics like Siskel and Ebert, but some critics, I feel like they almost want to dictate their opinion to you, you know? It's like they foresee every single person as what they think, and if you don't similarly think to how they are, then you are just like I don't know, you're not worthy or whatever, you know? Like, sometimes I get the vibe. I'm not like gonna name names, but I get the vibe from some critics that I've read either their review or seen their review. You sometimes get the sense that these guys just want to tell you how you should react. They don't really care. For all you know, they probably didn't even see the damn movie. They're just making it up. They look at the plot synopsis on Wikipedia and they go, yeah, I know what this is. I just read it in like a minute, scanned through it. It's a spy movie. Okay, got it. Now I can make up some baloney on camera here, and hopefully it's coherent in some language or another. So yeah, what else to talk about with this film? There's so much to ramble on about Tenet. Such a great movie. I really loved it. A lot of the theory videos I've seen definitely lived up to what I'm feeling about this film as well. And yeah, I can't wait till more people, especially close friends, have seen this, you know, so I can talk about it with them and have a good time, because this film, there's so much to unpack about it. And I really appreciate films that, you know, even if they're not blatantly made to be interpreted from one perspective or another, I love it when films aren't so cut and dry. Sometimes I like a nice cut and dry narrative with really focused character work and stuff like that, but I also really love films that sort of test how films are made in a certain sense, like basically it almost seems to me, and from a lot of people's perspectives, that Robert Pattinson almost represents Christopher Nolan in this film. And that's kind of the way I saw it by the end of this film as well. You know, I sort of saw it as like, okay, this might be the story, a fictitious story, obviously, but a fictionalized version of Christopher Nolan, where he's the Robert Pattinson character secretly, who's secretly kind of the heart of this movie. Like, and you don't really realize it until you get to the end, not to spoil anything, but it's like, if you sort of connect the dots, it's like, oh, okay, that sort of just fits in, lock and key. It's like a puzzle piece, just missing one, but you find that last piece after 2.5 hours, and it's like, oh, got it, makes sense now. Yeah, so everything's there to be understood. I think just a lot of people, maybe they were upset with the fact that, oh, I had to overthink everything. I had to pay attention to everything, you know? And it's just like, yeah, sometimes you gotta pay attention during a movie. I mean, what else can I say? This isn't Fast and Furious 10, whatever number they're on now. This isn't just brainless, like, hold on, let me go to the washroom for 10 minutes while Vin Diesel's talking about family again for the 1,000th time in this franchise. You know what I mean? It's just like, we get it. Yeah, just get to the next car chase because nothing else really, like, amounts to anything. Characters die in that franchise. They come back in the next film. Hey, they're fine. You know, I'm waiting for the point in which they just bring back Paul Walker because they're just fresh out of ideas and fresh out of hiring any new actors. They're just like, yeah, bring back Paul Walker. Why not? It's like the guy's dead. Let him rest in peace. It's like, no, we have to have one last scene where he's in the background and he's just like, hey, you know, and it's just like, that's it. They sort of show him in the back, hey, Vin Diesel goes, yeah, that's my brother, we family, yeah. Actually, he says it in a more like stoic sort of, I can't even replicate it. I make a bloody fool of myself. I can't even be serious. I'm trying to make my face serious now, like Vin Diesel. Paul Walker's family forever. That's Fast and Furious. Fo yo ass. I'm just waiting for Vin Diesel. Like, I'd love it if he just stops like giving a damn about being stoic all the time. I want him to like be dancing around in a comedy, doing more crazy stuff. Vin Diesel, man. Get him in like I don't know, pair him up with like a crazy director. Hell, like a David Lynch sort of guy. I don't know if Nolan like is that ticket for that. And honestly, I look at Tenet in a similar way that I do something like Parasite. I brought that movie up because I hope something similar happens with Tenet, where a lot of people were expecting the director of that, I forget his name, of Parasite, but a lot of people were expecting that movie to just win Best Director, and that to be probably it, and Best Picture would probably go to something generic that Hollywood usually goes with. But then it ends up being Parasite, and it's like, oh, that's awesome. That's an awesome next step to opening up people's minds to see and experience other type of movies rather than just American movies or movies with English, and if they're subtitled, I'm not interested. Cut me out of there. It's like you gotta you gotta explore more territory if you're going to watch movies. You can't just expect movies to be the same all the time. That's literal insanity, just expecting everything to play out in the way that you want. You know? Like movies shouldn't do that. A lot of them do, and a lot of them are entertaining distractions. But almost right away, as soon as you're done watching them, you almost forget about the fact that you had. It's like, oh, like maybe you remember one sort of moment from it that stood out, and the rest just like gone. Forget about it. It's vapor. So anyhow, I think that's enough talk from me. Thank you for watching this black, white, and red, and gray, and whatever other shade sort of appears here. We got burgundy, we got mellow, we got coffee, not really water. Here, look at that. You got a little more extra red there. That's more red for ya. More red for your ass. That's right. So go watch Tenet if you haven't. 10 out of 10 from me. I wasn't even thinking a 10 out of 10 for this film when I first saw it. I was thinking maybe 8 or 9 at best, but quite honestly, the more I think about this film, the more I want to rewatch it, you know, just to take away something else from it. This film is, I don't know. I say it might not be my favorite film of the year, but in another sort of way of thinking about it, it kind of is my favorite film of the year. I think film in general this year has been very strong in a lot of aspects. And everybody's saying that, oh, movies are dying. It's like they're not dead yet. You know, there's still some creative people out there that want to do special things with cinema, not just rest on their laurels and make something generic for the kiddies to scoop up and for everybody to monopolize. It's not just about that. I don't know. There's something about this film that's worth appreciating, and I hope more people get the chance to do so, because if COVID wasn't around, this film for sure would have gotten $1 billion, man. I guarantee that. I guarantee that this film, this film definitely would have done better than whatever the hell that new James Bond movie is. I mean, No Time to Die, that movie looks, I don't know if I'm the only one that thinks it, but I think that film looks like garbage. Hot garbage. Like, watching the trailer for that movie, I was shocked at how bad the editing was for a trailer. I'm just like, I've not seen, like, I've seen a lot of bad trailers for movies, some that just outright spoil movies, but I don't think I've ever seen a trailer for a big budget movie like No Time to Die. I forget, it probably was the first trailer, because they've probably done multiple trailers ever since, but I think it was the first trailer. It had all these like awkward like fade outs and fade into the next scene, and like very choppy like sound editing. I don't know, there's something just distractingly awful about it, and it gave me a bad sort of bad feeling. I just thought, like, man, this film, and then they picked somebody to do the theme song, like Billie Eilish, and it's just like, is she British? I mean, I don't know. Quite frankly, I don't care. It just seemed like, because they did the same with Sam Smith, and it's just like all these pop artists. It doesn't feel like they're trying to do something original with the franchise. It feels like when they hire somebody like Billie Eilish to do the theme song, it feels like they're just trying to cater to a large group of people that maybe don't really care about James Bond. They're not trying to appeal to people that specifically like action spy thrillers in the James Bond sort of sense of things. You know, it doesn't feel like they're trying to keep up with the tradition of something like James Bond. You know, this action-packed spy thriller that maybe throws in a bit of mystery and a bit of romance, bit of intrigue. You know, and that's another sense why I really love Tenet, because there's this undercurrent of romance throughout the movie. But what I love about this is that it's comparable, I think, to something like Casino Royale, because Casino Royale handles the romance in that rather nicely, in my opinion. However, there's still this sense that, like, Bond is like this playboy. He goes and sleeps with this other woman, but he does it to get information outright within the film. So it's like, okay, he's not only just doing this for pleasure, but he's doing this for business, and it's like, okay. But then you get something like Skyfall, and it's like he just walks in to the shower with the woman at one point, and she's like talking earlier in the film about how she was like in the sex trade or whatever, even as a kid, and then he just like, he has his way with her. It's just like, it's like the one scene from Skyfall. Other than that, I think it's actually got a lot of things wrong with it, Skyfall does, but I think it's a highly entertaining movie. It's like a great 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 movie. That it almost feels like it should be a 10 out of 10, but it does stuff like that, and then the villain just kills off this character, and Bond's sort of reaction to her dying is just like, that's your reaction? That's a disgusting sort of way to look at it. I mean, it's kind of upsetting, and it kind of distracts. Like, thankfully, it doesn't take away from the last act of that film, where it's this like Home Alone, home invasion sort of sequence involving Bond and M, and it's very well shot. Could be argued it's one of the best cinematography movies of all time. The cinematography in it is just incredible. The way they film certain scenes, it's just incredible looking. However, same could be said for Tenet, man. I mean, there's so much to love about this movie. Mainly the fact that this is James Bond at his best. without even having to be James Bond. This is whatever Nolan or you, the audience, wants it to be. You know, you create the before, you create the after. This is the sort of like middle. You know, this is sort of the unchangeable sort of. I don't know. Like it's just there's something so unique about this film, and it just makes me. I'll say it. It kind of makes me appreciate the intricacies of life even more. Gives me hope for the future of cinema. You know, I hope to see more creative, inventive movies like this. And we do. We get a lot of creative movies like this, but I feel they're very underappreciated in a certain regard. And I feel like a lot of us have been making excuses for it. We sort of go, oh, but the next Marvel movie's out, or oh, Aquaman is out now. It's just like, yeah, let's watch that instead of the indie movie from a guy who's made something that you absolutely love, but instead we're stuck at home for 2.5 hours watching like whatever Frozen or something generic like that. Something where it's just like, okay, this is just rubbish. At least the kids like it though. There's always that excuse like, at least it has this and at least it looks good. And it's like, okay, it's another one of those excuse movies to just throw on and go, this is entertainment. You know, it doesn't really teach you anything outside of what you already know. It's like, what is the message of Frozen? Be good, be yourself, let it go. It's like, yeah, these are bumper sticker things. These are things that everybody should know. You know, even kids to a certain extent kind of know. It's like, yeah, like I gotta be myself, but still, it's a good message for kids. I don't want to harp too much on Frozen or, you know, all this stuff that that dummies like me probably love. Like I probably love it, but you know, it's just like, I don't know. When you see so many films in your life, you kind of get to this point where you're just jaded about everything. Where it's just like things better tease my brain in some interesting way rather than just be generic. I'm sick and tired of films that do the same thing. You know, I don't like films that feel like copycat versions of other movies. And Nolan, like, even though I compare Tenet to James Bond mixed in with Twin Peaks, like, it's definitely not a copycat of anything that I've seen before. Like, maybe, like, some of the ideas, like, it's the end of the world, like, you sort of expect that from one of the Connery Bond movies, even the Roger Moore ones, where it's like the villain's plotting the end of the world, and it's like, he sort of uses that as just this jumping off point, like, oh, he's got this doomsday sort of device that's going to make the world end if something happens to him, and it's like we gotta dig deeper than just that, than just we have to get Bond to this location in order to punch the villain to save the day. Yeah, it's a very interesting movie. I genuinely can't praise this film enough. I think it's a masterpiece. 10 out of 10, A+. Oh, stretch it out. Trust me, sitting down for 2.5 hours watching a movie, it ain't no walk in the park, kids. This is really life-defining stuff here. Life-altering, life-challenging. I mean, like, oh God, watching a movie for 2.5 hours? What are you telling me to do? Run a marathon? That's impossible. Use my brain to think about something, darn it. How dare you suggest that? Yeah, keep it safe out there, people. Drink plenty of water. Stay alive with me. Nothing beats water. It's the best drink ever. I don't care who you are and what you say. Water's the way to go. Water is life. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.